to clip it.
Oh, I got like Axel in my beard. Okay, Axel, you gotta keep your head down if you're gonna be here for this episode. Okay, you ready to get started, Wallace?
Well, we've already started, my friend.
Okay.
We're knee deep at this point. Sorry, I'll save the term knee deep for this Tzeentch episode. Welcome everybody. It's Wallace and
Mike Pestilence.
And we're doing our.
We're not sure what episode number it is. We think it's episode 5. We haven't checked I think it's episode 5, right?
I think it's episode 5. You can't stop us if it isn't, though. Like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Leave a little comment with what you think the episode number should be.
It's okay to cyberbully us. Well, here's the thing, right? I feel like it was easy to start off. The first episode, obviously, and the second episode, you can keep track of that. But then the numbers keep getting bigger, and like my math skills aren't that great. Like once we get past like the 3s and the 4s, they all kind of get very samey to me.
I'm just gonna I guess we should care a little bit because the God numbers are coming up, so we can kind of do like a little themed episode.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this is 5. This is episode 5. So here we go.
Well, my friend, what have you been hopping on the last week?
Well, I got back from the Atlantic City Open.
Is that like a small little RTT? Were there like 1 or 2 people there? Was it just you playing games against yourself?
It was intensely casual. Most people there were narrative players.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the Age of Sigmar tournament was bigger. So, it was a good time. I stayed at the resort casino that the tournament was hosted in. Was pretty nice. The casino side, not as nice as like a Las Vegas casino,
Well, that's a high bar to clear.
It is, but it was definitely there. And then there was like the event hall, which itself was pretty spacious. I felt like there was plenty of room. So I did get to go and play some games and play my Hot Goat Summer list, which what
was it, 100 gores, 100 Zangors?
Almost. It was 90, but considering that you brought them back during the game, it was like 100.
That's true.
Little secret technique for everyone at home. I actually finished all of my models the day of the event, essentially.
That's the way to do it.
And there was some painting in my hotel room. And even then, I ended up being, I don't know if I left them in the hotel room or what happened. I ended up being short some gores. And luckily, I, started them and some of them in reserve or put them back into reserve. So it never actually mattered or came up.
Yeah.
But I was short a few gores from my 90. So I just had to really hope that I never had 90 of them on the table at once.
It's like when you bring horrors to a tournament, you never bring like enough blues or brimstone horrors to split all the way down. You bring like half the number, and if you ever need to like split all the way down, you're just in trouble. There's nothing you can say at that point.
You just got to make it work. I had some really poorly converted chaos spawn. I actually don't think they were that poorly converted.
I think they were really cool. You literally did them the day before you left. I think that was actually really impressive, all things considered.
I did put a lot of effort into making them somewhat nice so that they wouldn't get pulled. The problem was I put in an order at a local game store for some chaos spawn, and I checked in a couple of times while I was on vacation to make sure that the order was in and all that stuff. They never put in the order. So when I got back and I walked into the store and I was like, all right, I'm picking up those chaos spawn. They're like, we didn't order them. So that kind of sucked. So I went through the collection at the game store looking for models I could convert. And this was the night before I got on the plane and left to travel. So that was me staying up that whole night because it was like a 4 a.m. flight.
What did you end up converting your chaos spawn out of?
Oh, I took those skin hounds, those skin wolves from like vampire.
Yeah, that's old school. I respect that.
But like they have newer models that look pretty nice. Well, I took those and I took Zangor bits and I took some like chaos bits I had. And essentially my theme, my narrative was that they were like that my army was actually what happened to the populace of Fenris.
No way. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I did like a little narrative thing, which actually I think was part of why the conversions were allowed, even though I did not send them in preemptively, was because there's a theme to them. So they were like all corrupted Fenrisian wolves. They ended up being kind of cool. So like, for instance, I would have one and it was like a wolf, but then there was like a Zangor coming out of its stomach, like, or like it had tentacles all over the place. It felt like The Thing.
I love it.
Have you seen The Thing, the movie The Thing?
It's like an older movie, right?
It's an older horror film. It's a really good one. There's a dog monster in it, and I felt like I kind of captured the essence of dog monster. I mean, statistically, enough of you have seen The Thing at home that this is relevant to you, even if it's not relevant to Mike, because he's kind of like a zoomer and hasn't seen those films.
No one listening is just a statistic to me. They're all important. I want to know every movie everyone's ever watched so we can make like the best, most optimal references. I don't want anyone to not get a reference.
Well, speaking of references, I'm going to reference back to what we did at the start of this little section.
You're on firewalls.
I'm gonna ask you right now, buddy, what have you been up to in terms of hobby stuff?
I've been living up to my billing as an Emperor's Children player. Ooh. And painting also the background image. Also the tattoo I have, which is for your eyes only. I've been painting on some. Let's see if I can get it to show up on the camera. I've been touching up some of my old Slash demons. We have the mask here. I've been touching up some of my demonettes. I just think they're really cool models, and I've gotten them tabletop ready a long time ago. Like one of my first GTs, I just brought like 90 demonettes when I had no idea what I was doing. But the thing with that was they were kind of speed rushed. So I'm going back in some more detail and make them look nice, because I feel like every competitive player knows, like, or like not competitive, like tournament player at some point knows the grind to like quickly rush and get army ready. Then you have to like touch them up later if you want them to look nice. Speaking of demonettes, one of the themes of this episode I want to talk about was, we know there's some big changes coming out. There's the new Nephilim packet coming out, Nephilim, however you say it, the new mission pack. And with it corresponding points changes. I would really want to get your thoughts on some of the points changes you're hoping to see. Because I've got demonettes points drops, just I'm begging for some of them.
Where do you want the mission packet? Yeah, let's talk about it. So where would you like me to start? Because I'm a demons player. I like me some demons. I want to see some mild point adjustments with demons.
I'd like you to start with your life history. I want to get every detail of every day of Wallace's life. But in lieu of that, to keep this episode short, let's start with demons. What kind of demons points drop do you want to see?
Yeah, my whole life history is more of a like 7th or 8th episode kind of thing.
That's fair.
Not the 5th episode.
Well, hold on, we might be on the 7th or 8th episode. I'm honestly not entirely
Who even knows? So demons, starting it off the bat with a banger. I think demons absolutely fundamentally change for the better and become a competitive faction if the Nephilim book gives us a good third secondary, because our problem is finding secondary number 3. A valid replacement for Stranglehold. I think there's already ones that exist. I don't actually think it's going to be a big transition for us. Like, we're already good at things like Engage. So if those guys are sticking around, we're in a good spot. And we need some really modest point adjustments. Where I would like to see them is not on units that already have wonky or bad data sheets, like units that like the statistics on it or the rules on it just don't work. Like, there's a price point at which
talking about soul grinders.
Right. There's a price point at which I would bring 3 soul grinders, but we don't want to see that price point is the thing. Because model...
Some of us own a few soul grinders would love to see that price point, but...
The model doesn't do anything. At the point at which you brought it, you'd be buying it to essentially have something that move blocks your opponent. That would be your only reason to ever really want the soul grinder.
Well, to be fair, it also move blocks you, so there's kind of a little demonic trade-off there.
There is.
Part of it true is I get what you're saying, where you don't want just cheap units, you want units to feel like badass, you want them to feel like they do in the lore, like devastating war machines.
Well, I want units with identity, and the thing about the Demons Codex is the addition at that point didn't have an identity. And so a lot of the data sheets in there didn't either. Like there was a few units that had particular roles that they filled that were really niche. For instance, I think Nurglings and Fiends both could stand to drop a few points, and it makes the faction better when you do those things because those are two units that you would want. However, right now, if we're just looking for the shot in the arm to make demons competitive again, we need a good third secondary, and we need a point adjustment on our troops. If our troops got even slightly less expensive, like I'm talking like if our troops either got 1 point cheaper or we got something like a free instrument on them, like you know how they did the free Misericordias for the Custodes. If we got something like that was just a real slight increase on the amount of points for our troop slots, that would be huge for the faction, because what we want right now is we want units with identities. Well, troops have an identity. Troops are our OBSEC, they're our core, and because we don't do a lot of other things, we need to do the having OBSEC cheap model core thing. Like we just have to have models that do objectives.
I could not agree more. I think something like Plague Bearers at 9 are painful. At 8 they're much more appealing. I think Demonettes, if they get a points drop, are downright really good at 6. I can see that happening.
It's also the god number. Like make them the god number. I'm cool with that.
That's true. Plague Bearers at 7, I'll take it. Plague Bearers at 3, I take it even more. Bloodletters, I think, are actually probably pretty fairly costed in the current meta. Can't complain about them. Horrors, I get it. I think pinks are fine. I think the little guys need to go down. I think if blues go down from 7 to 6, I think that's a small but significant buff. I think that there's just a lot of opportunity for like very small tweaks to have big impact.
Hear me out. You make all of the demon troops their god number in cost. All right.
You want 9 point pink horrors? Okay.
Yes, because I want 6 point blue horrors. That balances it out and gives you flavor, and you're kind of like paying the you're paying the tax, but then you're not really paying the tax. And that way there's a justification for why my other good troops got cheaper for flavor purposes.
I see that. As much as 6/9 with pink horrors would be a sight to behold, I do think that I love your idea of free instruments and icons. Just from a practical perspective, one of the great things about Sigmar is like you can build stuff, you can use all the bits in the box, and your demons will be fine because you just have unlimited icons and instruments. I think with 40k it's kind of awkward because if you have like 10 demonettes and you've built, them with an icon and instrument, like the next 10, do you just leave them like bare bones? If you want to build a second icon or instrument, you're gonna be way overpaying because you don't want to ever double up in a squad of 20. But like, what if you want to MSC wouldn't want to have them, or like, what if you're on a big squad of 30, you need like 29 bare bones, only one instrument. So I think that's anything there's a chance that a quality of life change, I'm a big fan of things like that.
It also just like the rolling the 1 and getting guys back is fundamental to the theme of demons for forever. It's everyone, when you roll a 1, instinctually expects you to get models back, even if you don't have an icon. And it's always feels bad if you didn't bring one and you roll the 1, because of course you will. So I don't know. Give me a free icon. That's fair. That's fun. Yeah. So that would be my demon change. So slapping that on there, that's like whoosh, Wallace change.
Well, let's talk about, if we have to, just for interest of balance, we can't just ask for buffs. What unit would you sacrifice for the points increase? That would be painful, or like thing would be like a fair increase.
I would sacrifice keepers. They would have to pay that point tax because keepers are somewhat still point efficient, and we don't have a lot of somewhat still point efficients. The thing is, Mike, I feel like all the units that we should sacrifice for buffs, we had to sacrifice for nothing in the last field guide, because Nurglings got absolutely wrecked. The Lord of Change, dude,
it still hurts.
What?
It still hurts. It still hurts deep in my heart, deep in my soul. Who can pay 300 points for a Lord of Change? So I just realized this other day, it just clicked for me. A Lord of Change is basically the same cost as 2 Maleceptors. Like we said, like, it's just genuine. Like it boggles the mind that we're even playing the same game.
I think he was perfectly fine and still competitive at like 270.
Yeah,
he was expensive, but he was your centerpiece model. He still did really cool things, but he's wild at 300. It's mind-boggling.
Also, the thing is, when they did the point increase, they have to have known these horrors they were going to release in the later codexes that would just make that look super pointing. At 270, compared to some of the newer books, like Hail of Doom just goes like, boop, goodbye, buddy.
Yeah, and I don't know who does the balancing for all of this, but I feel like demons have always been something that they hate. Like they don't like it when demons are good. Maybe like that's just like my victim complex as a demon player, but I do feel like demons get hit with a lot of weird random point increases. And then every once in a while, we're the beneficiary of random point decreases that are unnecessary. So flamers are an example. Flamers got cheaper. They didn't need to. They were great at like 23 points. Yeah. So you know,
sometimes it just feels like they're just randomly clicking buttons there. It's just like a roulette wheel they spin,
and they'll still take
goes up.
Yeah, they're gonna take 20 points off that soul grinder. I know it, and they're still gonna be awful. So
last thing before we move on from demons, I just think there's a list. You get 3 soul grinders, you have a changeling, you summon more Tzeentch soul grinders, and that's just the entire list. You keep summoning Tzeentch soul grinders.
They're all soul grinders. Wait, it's all soul grinders? Always has been.
Always has been. But so we'll talk about that, yeah. So demons, okay, then we've covered. Let's talk about Thousand Suns.
Thousand Dumbs.
Thousand Suns knows or units do you want to see go down? And I will say before we keep going, you can't select any units that overlap with Chaos Space Marines or Death Guard, just because I think that's all be tied together. So let's just ignore things like Forged Fiends. They need a points drop. Let's ignore them for now.
Yeah, I think that Scarabs should go up a little bit. They were already good before Armor of Contempt, and they're very expensive as they are. They should be slightly more expensive. They're a little too point efficient. And if you do that increase, it will afford you some decreases on other things. So like what I want to see is I want to see the list that like is the core list with the 20 Scarab occults and stuff. I want that to actually go up like essentially no points, but I want some things in that list to get cheaper so that it evens out if you increase the Scarabs.
Well, I will say part of it too is we have to keep in mind overall context of when we get these changes to our own units, other codexes are going to get balanced, and we assume there's big hits to mids coming that were like kind of confirmed / unconfirmed. Eldari, the rumors are some pretty painful kicks in their elven dicks at that point. And we're also looking at, who else is it? Tau. The rumors
I heard Tau are getting like absolute. Yeah, I heard.
Which is unfortunate because I feel like I know there's a lot of passionate Tau players out there, so I hope they don't get driven into the dirt.
Yeah, I want to see like Riptides get 30 points cheaper and then just everyone bring them. That would bring me back to my 7th edition years of playing against Riptide Wing every game.
Yeah. So also, given that context, if we assume all of the big bads are going to go up in points, then it's okay to raise Scarab points. Like right now, they don't need anything, but if we're going to raise other factions, nerf them. Yeah, I agree. Well, so what comes down? Scarabs go up. Let's say they're currently 40. Let's say they go up to 45. I think people still.
I don't think 45 is where I'd put them, but yeah, like around like 43, like a slight point increase, right?
Well, the thing is, everyone runs them right now. They're 43 points on average. Do you get a squad of 10 for 430 because you buy 2 10-point missiles and then 2 5-point Gatlings? So I think if it was up to like from 430 to 450 total, including special weapons, that seems reasonable, like a 5% increase.
Sure, yeah. I want to see
maybe up to 45 and weapons become free, something like that.
I don't ever want to see cultists again in a Thousand Suns list unless you're doing something narrative.
Okay.
I want to see Zangors go to 6 points so that you just always bring them. It would also buff their Warpmeld Pact, which is kind of the thing that they released recently and are running around with, and I'm a fan of. So you could probably drop them to 6 points. That feels entirely fair. I'd love to see the Zangor Shaman go down some points.
Yeah, 70 is a bit much.
He's rather expensive. So I would like to see him go down a little bit. I would also like to, I know they'd never touch like the Legion command stuff, but I'd like to see some of those get adjusted. Some are just weirdly expensive, like a Dilettante is like 35 or something.
Well, I will say, I think actually Dilettante should have been cheaper previously. Now in the new pack, where again, the rumor / leaks are that you're going to be paying for every single relic you take, including your free one. I think it actually becomes more valuable to be able to buy one with the points. So I think, I don't know, I think 35 is a little on the pricey side. I think that's in the ballpark of fair. I will say that I agree. Cultists, just forget them. They're as cheap as can be because they don't want to lower anything besides 5 point per model. I think some of the Enlightened, the Zangors on disc, 54 for 3 is a little bit much. I'd love to see them go down to about 16 each, maybe like 48 for 3, maybe even 45 for 3.
So honestly, what a sad unit, because it was actually kind of cool in the last codex as like a melee threat, and now they're not really that anymore. So they either need to be really cheap, which I agree with, or they need to just a rules overhaul. I think they need a rules overhaul, but
agreed. That's not happening at this point, though.
Right.
If it was going to happen, it would have been like the AOR. They would have bounced a big melee buff. They didn't. So I think at this point, and there used to be a thing in the previous codex. You used some cool synergy where they auto wounded on 6 up to hit and give them +1 to hit or even +2 to hit. So they auto wound really well. That's just not a thing anymore. AP1 is just miserable.
They make them AP3. So the new Army of Renown has a 1 CP strat to turn their weapons to AP3, which is good. Okay. So their melee gets solid. But solid. It's the volume of attacks that kills them. They don't fight twice anymore.
Right? Yeah. I will say, twice. I think one of the big changes could be if they become cheap enough, because right now you only ever see a 3-man just because they move 12 with fly. They just screen or grab an objective or hold a backfield. I think you make them cheap enough to like 15 each. I think you could actually see some like big units of 9, or not like 9, but like 5 or 6 as like skirmishers.
I don't know if you can bring 9. I think you can only bring 6. I could be wrong.
Okay, either way, you'll see like larger units instead of MSU. I'd love to see like a big brick of 5. You could take some buffs pretty well, instead of just the cheapest can be to grab objectives.
So I also want their Vindicator and stuff to go down points, but we talked about that. Like
it's tough, because it's tied to the new CSM codex, which I don't know if they're willing to ever make a points difference on the same unit between codexes. Let's forget those for now.
They've done that before, but okay. And I think like a Helldrake could drop some points.
The Helldrake, the Helldrake is a little painful at, I think it's 165 currently. I think like in a fair world, in a world where Harpies are 140, like you can't even name a price for Helldrake because it would just get absurdly low. I think in a world where like Harpies take a big nerf, I think in a fair world, maybe like 150 for Helldrake feels about right.
I want to, in a world where Harpies are 140, I want my flying guy to be 140 as well.
Well, the Harpie's straight up better than a Helldrake. So I don't know if a Harpie's 140, I think you just have Helldrake with your detachment. You bring back 7th edition at that point.
It is. It would still, like, I want the Harpy to still be good. I want the Harpy to be like 160. But
okay, let's talk Death Guard, because I think they're a faction like on the brink. We've talked before about like there's a lot of fun lists people can explore. They're on the brink of being good. What kind of points changes do you want to see for Death Guard?
I want Plague Marines to have cheaper weapon upgrade options. I think they're actually well statted for just the bolt gun body.
That 21's pretty fair.
It's a fair price to pay. I also like the parity between that and other special Marines. But their upgrade options are very expensive for what you are buying. I want their cleavers and their axes and those things to get a lot cheaper.
Well, I saw an idea floated. Like they go up to 22 points, you just get free weapons.
That's fine. Like I actually kind of agree with that. You just play with what's in the box. It's a good band-aid
for putting like a cool thing on, because even if it's not optimal, you're not like paying out the nose for it. And then again,
out the nose, good Nurgle reference.
There we go. Or maybe out the mouth in your stomach. I think that part of it too is people want to see Plague Marines. They're the iconic unit in the army. You read Lords of Silence, they're like the main ones on the battlefield. That great book by Chris Wright. I think that anything that gets more Plague Marines on the battlefield is always going to be a good sign for Death Guard players.
Yeah, and they're pretty good at 21 points again, as just a tanky small unit to put on an objective or put in.
Can bully people, can bully equally costed units.
You can put them in a Rhino. Rhinos are tanky now, so they don't die for free. So it actually takes a lot of firepower to pick up a Rhino and then like 5 to 10 of them inside.
Yeah, it's very awkward to deal with.
The problem with them is not their stat line. The problem with them is their lack of access to things that make them scary. There's like a bunch of CP you can dump in them to make their bolt guns kind of okay.
Yeah, it's hard to be worth it. I think Blade Lords are your CP dump for bolters.
They are. So I would rather see them just get cheaper weapon upgrade options. Like that's the simple answer, or having it baked into their cost and then everybody groans because they didn't magnetize theirs. Something like that.
It's Death Guard. You can always like snap off the arms and then just kind of like hot glue it together and it'll look vaguely nergly.
Or like green stuff, like extra arms on them holding all the different options so that you're never wrong. So that's cool.
I can see that.
Now next on the docket for Death Guard isn't just the Plague Marines. I think that the Pathetic Blight Haulers should be 90 points.
What are they? I think they're 130 now.
They're 130. I think they should drop 40 whole points.
Okay, do you talk about in a world where a Harpy is the same cost as a Blight Hauler, basically? In which case, yeah, it should be 90. Or you talk about a sane world?
I think it's fine, even if you're costing around something that's like a Contempt or Dreadnought. Like in a universe where Contempt or Dreadnought costs what it costs, I would still put them at 90. I don't even think you need to balance 90
around. 90 is a bit aggressive. I think you'd say 9 and almost, let's say 110. I think 110 you drop 20 and then reevaluate.
It's a handful of multi-gun shots and essentially nothing else. Like it's that and a heavy stubber. It does nothing in melee.
It does have one of the best strats in the game, the -1 attack on ranged weapons,
which is a weird strat.
I agree, but it cripples certain units, like a lot of guns, like multi-meltas, for example. Just do not ever want to shoot Blight Haulers.
If you made them 90 points, and now that To the Last is gone, I think this is fine.
Yeah,
I would bring like 3 units of 3 of them, and it wouldn't be crazy good.
Well, but it would. The strat becomes 2 CP, which becomes really pricey in the new world. If you run more than 2, so I think 3 squads of 2. But also, let's talk about the synergy where I think they give some buff. It's either -1 to hit or +1 cover save to infantry nearby. So there's a world in which you can actually run them like they're supposed to be. You run Blight Haulers surrounded by Plague Marines. I'd love to see that on the tabletop.
That's what I was going to say. So, like, I think the universe I want a mechanized Death Guard to be really good. I think you don't need to make any points adjustments to the Plague Burst Crawler. It's very good at its current point cost.
Yeah, I think the indirect was fair. That's at this point, it's a good, fair unit.
It was a fair unit. I want that. I want like 3 units of 2 Mephetic Blight Haulers at 90 points. I want a Rhino or 3 Rhinos with 3 squads of Plague Marines in it. I want 3 squads of Pox Walkers, and then I want my characters. On that note, characters. Typhus, why did they do it to you, buddy? Why did they? Do you know Typhus's lore? Do you know his lore?
Yeah, he argues the Mortarion. He wants to be independent. He wants to be the head Nurgle honcho.
He's the head Nurgle.
He was the hive in him in his armor. Yeah,
he was the lead of the 14th, and then he also is the one that essentially handed the Death Guard over to Perdition. Like he is their front man. He's the hype man. Mortarion is not the hype man.
I've read the horse.
Yeah. Yep. So why then do you give us a model that's 165 points for very meh? He's like if you took a Malignant Plague Caster and like a Chaos Lord and just kind of smushed them together.
I actually like him. I basically think of him not as like a melee threat. You think of him as a Plague Caster that's also really durable and good melee.
He's not bad in terms of rules. I'm saying he's not as cool as he should be in terms of rules. He is the boy. Well, he should be.
We're talking points costs. We're not talking rules rewrites.
I know.
I agree. In an ideal world, he should be like a massive character. But there's so many characters in 40k that when they come on the battlefield, they should be like head honchos, basically carry the battle by themselves. They can't all be Primarch level.
The reason I'm complaining about this is because I want you to really want Typhus in your list. And with his current rules, it's not like he does some crazy thing that you need to have. So you would only ever bring him if his points were competitive. I think he should be intentionally undercosted for that reason. Like I should really want Typhus in my list. I should really, really want him in my list. I should want him in my list so much that I'm willing to use his ability that allows you to bring him with any Death Guard company.
Yeah,
that's how much I should want this guy on my list. So I think in order to get him to that point, we need to look at like whatever it is that a Chaos Lord Terminator armor is, make that guy cheaper, and then like slot him in slightly more expensive than a Chaos Lord.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair way to think of it. Last note, let's talk about Mortarion and Magnus, because they're kind of, speaking of head honchos and chaos.
Yeah.
I think Magnus was way overcosted out of the gate. I think Mortarion was fairly costed. I think the game shifted past the point where it's fairly costed. What would you do with Magnus and Mortarion? Because I think Magnus's rules are fantastic. His synergies are fantastic. Just 450 is kind of insane for what you get. Just make him 375 then reevaluate.
Yeah, so again, I would really love to change the rules on these guys to make them competitive. I think all they really need is like a wound cap type of rule.
Yeah, it'd be what it'd be.
But because we don't have that, let's just make them a bit cheaper. So Magnus should go down. I think he would be fair if he went down 30 points. Like, it doesn't have to be a crazy amount.
You want from 450 to 420? I think it's still pretty pricey for what you're getting.
No, I want the meme number.
Well, let's make him 69 points then. I think that's good.
You mean 3 Slaanesh Chaos Spawn is going to run you up about 69 points. But yeah, let's drop them to a clean 400. I mean, they're not going to.
400 than evaluate. No, they're not.
There's no way, because they are clearly not. They intentionally don't like God models right now, is my feeling, because like Be'lakor went up a random 20 points.
They want them all going to Sigmar. Well, I think part of it too is Magnus is such an impressive model. He's always going to be flying off the shelves regardless. Like, everyone eventually that plays Thousand Suns is going to want a Magnus. There's never a need to like push him in the codex or force people to bring him. I think that's just cast overall. With such cool models, we can't have everything.
And if their Warlord traits are free, it's kind of like a pseudo.
Yeah, I think that'll be really interesting because there's Supreme Command. Let's see what kind of FAQs happen or the exact rules in the next packet. Wallace, last question before we go here. Don't want to let it get too long, but on a scale from 1 to 10, how hyped are you for the new mission packet?
Having played a lot of this Grand Tournament pack, I would say I am very excited for it because I just need something new. I'm of the slim category of people that have played maybe too much of this current mission pack.
I feel that. I think we both are. We've tried every form of chaos under the sun. Let's get some new rules. Let's get some new points. And let's get back there to wage in the long war. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been another unnumbered episode of Warp Wednesday. We'll find out when we post the title.
Number five.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
Woo! Bye.